Well, welcome. I'm Greg Coleridge, co-director of Move to Amend. On behalf of Move to Amend's co-directors and board members and fellows and board members of Democracy Unlimited, thank you so much for being here this evening or late afternoon or early evening, depending on where you are, to join us in celebrating the remarkable 15-year anniversary of Move to Amend. For the next couple of hours, you will hear from two panels of some incredible individuals. The first will consist of several people who helped us give birth. Wait a second. Corporations can't give birth, nor can they be born. So let me rephrase. Individuals who helped launch Move to Amend and or who were very active for some or many years in its development. They will share the origin story, if you will, including the role of the group Democracy Unlimited in Move to Amend's beginning and ongoing, as well as its incredible accomplishments during its first decade or longer. The second panel to follow of Democracy Unlimited and Move to Amend representatives will focus on where we are near and plan ahead and focus on visions as well. Each panelist has 5 minutes to speak. Genevie will keep time and let individuals know when their time is up. I will offer a few questions at the conclusion of comments to all panelists, which will prompt responses and discussion. Following a few announcements, we welcome then your comments and questions. But to begin, it all is a brief video history of these two incredible intertwined groups, Democracy Unlimited and Move to Amend, that's being narrated by former Move to Amend co-director and current Democracy Unlimited board member, Shelley Williams. So, welcome. Look forward to your participation and being with you for the next couple of hours. So let us begin.
A brief history. This is adapted from a recent training for our new Democracy Unlimited fellows, but it does a really good job explaining the roots of this movement and how it evolved into the Move to Amend campaign. And we'll also talk about what we're excited about looking forward. So this story actually has a preface, and that would be POCLAD, Program on Corporations, Law, and Democracy. This collective formed in 1995 were democracy activists, researchers, and thinkers, and they built this foundational analysis that birthed groups like Democracy Unlimited of Humboldt County and Move to Amend, as well as a number of other local grassroots organizations around the U.S. that were fighting corporate rule in their own communities. The POCLAD analysis teaches the real history of corporate rule in the United States and how corporations gained constitutional standing as people at the expense of the rights of actual humans, communities, and nature. And it also teaches the real history of local and mass movements against corporate rule. Also in 1995, I believe it may have started under a different name, but what was known as Democracy Unlimited of Humboldt County was formed, and Paul Cienfuegos, one of the co-founders, said in 1999 that the goal was to begin educating and organizing to dismantle corporate rule in Northern California and Southwest Oregon. And this was inspired by this analysis that POCLAD had, and it blossomed into one of the country's most active grassroots groups, challenging not simply the harms that corporations do, but the rights that they claim, and that's free speech rights, property rights, political participation rights, and much more. In the early days of Democracy Unlimited of Humboldt County, they were working on single rural community issues like clear-cut logging, big box stores. But in 1998, they did a ballot initiative in the city of Arcata known as Measure F, and it called on the city council to host 2 town hall meetings on the topic, can we have democracy when large corporations wield so much power and wealth under law? And because Measure F was pretty unprecedented, it was endorsed by the likes of Howard Zinn, Noam Chomsky, Jim Hightower, and many others. And it passed with 58% of the vote. And these meetings had about 4% turnout of registered voters in Arcata, which is pretty good. Sadly, this committee has since dissolved, but it was a pretty big deal at the time. Then in the 2000s, the Duck House era begins. In 2003, Caitlyn George became the new executive director of Democracy Unlimited of Humboldt County, and her home in Eureka, California became known as the Duck House, and it functioned as a homestead, office, and community gathering and organizing hub. In the Duck House days, there were all kinds of community events, pancake breakfast, potlucks, skill shares. You see chicken coops, beekeeping, bike repair, gardening, lots of community popular education. And this was the theory of change that Democracy Unlimited of Humboldt County used, and we still carry this forward. It underpins all of the work that we do today. And these were some excerpts from brochures about Democracy Unlimited of Humboldt County and what they were about. The Measure T campaign, huge accomplishment by Democracy Unlimited of Humboldt County. It was a local control ballot initiative that banned political contributions from non-local corporations. And it passed in June 2006 with 55% of the vote. The website from the campaign is still up. I put a little screenshot of it. It's very cute. You should check it out. And the Community Currency Exchange, also known as Humbucks. It was a local currency project in Humboldt County, and the honor tax, which is the way of recognizing and respecting the sovereignty of Native nations. It is a tax out of respect for Native sovereignty, and it was a beautiful program of Democracy Unlimited. So all this is going on locally, and in spring of 2009, the oral arguments begin in the Citizens United case. So these folks in Humboldt County and all over the country who were involved in POCLAD or in Wisconsin, where they had other local groups similar to Democracy Unlimited, all of these folks, shared this analysis that corporate constitutional rights was at the root of all these issues. And here we have a Supreme Court case that is about corporate constitutional rights. So in the fall of 2009, 12 democracy activists convened in Northern California to decide what is to be done with this moment where we have the country paying attention to this issue that we have been trying to get people to care about for a long time. What are we going to do? And that is how the Move to Amend campaign was born. So they were right, as expected. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of Citizens United, and we were ready to go on that day, January 21st, 2010, to launch this campaign. And I included a screenshot here of the original Facebook post from the Democracy Unlimited Facebook page. And it reads that today the Supreme Court ruled that corporations have the same constitutional rights as human beings. Sign the motion to amend the Constitution to affirm rule by the people, not corporations. Go to movetoamend.org, paste this message in your status today. And I just want to say too that this post, when I went back to find it, had 1 like on it. And to think about these beginnings is pretty incredible when you think about what we have done since this campaign launched. So between 2010 and 2014, the early days of the campaign, hundreds of thousands of people signed the motion to amend, and hundreds of organizations endorse the campaign. Dozens of local affiliate groups start to form around the United States. Hundreds of resolutions and ballot initiatives in support of the We the People Amendment are passed on the local and even state levels. Barnstorming tours across the country to build the campaign, heavy presence in the Occupy movement, Move to Amend. You may or may not know, we coined the well-known slogan, corporations are not people, money is not free speech. And the We the People Amendment is first introduced into the House of Representatives in 2014. 2014 through 2019 was an era of, getting really on the same page in our analysis and our ideas of how how this campaign could actually win. And so that's why we introduced the movement education program. We wanted our folks to be studying movement history, be working on their internal democracy practices and their solidarity organizing practices in their own community. And we made that a required course for any affiliate groups representing our name. And some groups did leave over the mandate. Some continue to do that work, without working directly with us, and some did not. But many people stayed, and we saw a lot of incredible, beautiful growth from folks taking the time to do this work. And so for about 2 years, much of our time was spent facilitating these sessions with groups around the US. And sometimes we would even fly there to do it in person. We also introduced our 10-year strategic plan to pass the We the People Amendment. Representative Pramila Jayapal takes over as our lead sponsor for the amendment. And we moved our operations from very remote Humboldt County to Sacramento, California, and continue to work from Caitlyn's new house. In 2016, we held our first National Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C. Approximately 100 Move to Amend organizers attended this inaugural summit from every corner of the U.S., including Hawaii and Alaska. These summits feature a weekend full of workshops and trainings on organizing and creative direct action skills, lobbying, and inspiring plenaries. And the summit ends with a Monday lobby day where we all descend on the halls of Congress to lobby for co-sponsors for the We the People Amendment. And we have held 3 of these summits with lobby days in Washington, D.C. in 2016, 2018, and 2019. 2020 through today. So like many organizations, COVID shifted us into fully remote work and finding new ways to connect with people using virtual means. The political moment, uprisings, election year chaos, etc., shifted us into bigger picture thinking. How could we help push the envelope? With how fast things were shifting and how ambitious people's demands were becoming, we felt it was a good time to introduce a project we had been working on and thinking about for a long time called Toward a People's Constitution. And we used a format known as a People's Movement Assembly. This event was a 2-day event held in October of 2020 and had plenaries and breakout groups. And the goal was to learn about constitutional politics and build consensus together around what are the problems and what a new constitution that was based in human, community, and environmental rights could look like. In 2022, we did a radical gathering, and this event featured a range of educational and visionary plenaries and sessions with on frontline issues against corporate rule with frontline organizers like abolitionists, environmental justice, and housing justice activists. And while not officially a Democracy Unlimited program at the time, this event coincided with an emerging sense shared by many of us that it might be time to start getting back to our roots. And could Democracy Unlimited be the vehicle? 2021 and 2022 involved many organizational changes. We shifted from a mostly Sacramento-based staff to more geographically diverse, with some staff transitioning to board. And Caitlyn Saposi-Belknap stepped down as national director due to health and family reasons. And after Caitlyn's departure, the remaining staff team decided to move to a horizontal cooperative leadership model. And we now have 5 dedicated co-directors doing the day-to-day work of Move to Amend. And now we are going to talk about Democracy Unlimited today. This is kind of a soft launch conversation to talk about where we want to go from here. So there has been a reemergence with Democracy Unlimited. So for, since the Move to Amend campaign was launched, Democracy Unlimited of Humboldt County kind of became dormant, mostly functioning as a fiscal sponsor. But as we began to explore more visionary projects like Toward a People's Constitution and a Radical Gathering and Agitated Podcast, we identified that Democracy Unlimited could be that container, further distinguishing this work from the Move to Amend campaign. So in the past 2 years, We have legally changed the name to simply Democracy Unlimited. We've created a website. It is the Shell website right now, democracyunlimited.org. We formed a new board of directors, some from Move to Amend and some just Democracy Unlimited. We began to dedicate time at organizational retreats to reshaping Democracy Unlimited and began to hold monthly meetings to develop the organization's vision and goals. And very exciting is the rebranding process, which we're very deep in and getting close. And pretty soon we'll be able to unveil this rebranding of Democracy Unlimited. Our vision statement that we recently wrote together is Democracy Unlimited uplifts people to build a world where our systems of power prioritize the well-being of humans and the living world. We reclaim authority that has been unjustly seized by governments and corporations, all with the aim of cultivating a genuinely democratic society, including actively working in solidarity with mutual aid groups rooted in an anti-oppression framework, advocating for urgent climate solutions, and ending profit-driven agendas. We will win by building networks for community-driven change and collective action, preparing the ground for constitutional renewal and systemic transformation through participatory democracy, while promoting nonviolent popular uprisings. And we're very excited to welcome our new Democracy Unlimited Fellows. They came on over the summer, and that's Jasmine Lewis from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Genevie Muma from Mililani, Hawaii. And they have been hard at work helping to co-create this new organization and content, and are coming up with really, really juicy, good ideas. And we're really, really excited to have them working on this with us. And so just to be, more clear, we've always talked about the Move to Amend campaign as the key in the door. We do have some folks who see the amendment as an end. We never have as a national team. We have always seen it as a key in the door. And that implies that there is something on the other side of that door, right? So Democracy Unlimited is the space where we can imagine what is on the other side of that door and inspire us as individuals and communities to begin building that vision today. So stay tuned for official Democracy Unlimited rebrand and relaunch in early 2025. Social media with visual storytelling. We'll have a new website. We have the website, that's a Shell website. It will be a beautiful new website soon. We're working on analysis and white papers around some juicy intersections. Right now, Jasmine's working on democracy and safety and looking at that intersection. We'll be doing people's movement assemblies, including an upcoming post-election PMA, so stay tuned for that. And more ways to support this work. We will, be able to start taking sustaining donations soon. We will have opportunities for, volunteering and serving. And so please stay with us if you want to be more involved as we go through this relaunch. And questions. I'm just going to say save them for the panels. I know that we covered both the history and the future plans here. And so we have actually two panels that kind of are related to both of those things. So if you have questions about the story, things that weren't filled in, or things that, you thought about as you were hearing the story, the first panel coming up will be the folks who have been there for a lot of that early story. So that would be a great place to ask those questions. And then the second panel that we will have will be about the future and what we're excited about and looking forward to. So thanks so much for enjoying this story with me. I hope that I got everything right. I was not there for the early parts, and I pieced it together as best I could. There are folks here who can definitely clarify anything I didn't get right or missed. But thank you so much, and enjoy the program.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Shelley. She could not personally be with us this evening, but she did a terrific job in putting this video together, which will be available, I assume, following this program. So watch for that in an email about how you can access that. And most importantly, not just for your own use, but to share about the history of these two interconnected organizations. So now let us turn to the first of the two panels. I want to introduce the individuals who will be on that. So Alfonso, if you're able to put those folks on the screen. Caitlyn Sapoki Belknap, the one of the original founders of Move to Amend, who was part of the gathering, as was George Friday. Laura Bonham, hopefully Laura, she had some technical issues earlier, but hopefully she can both hear and speak to us. Daniel Lee, a longtime board member of Move to Amend, as well as a more current board member of Democracy Unlimited. So I don't know in what particular order, maybe start with you, Caitlyn, again, just to finish out the intro. Caitlyn, as most of you here know, both a longtime director of Move to Amend, who came to us following being one of the founders and initiators of Democracy Unlimited, and one of those who met in that living room. So Caitlyn, so glad you could join us in the space and under some physical duress with a, what is it, thunderstorm going on.
Yeah. Well,
and so just to say real quick again, do check chat because there will be time notices put in the chat of when your 5 minutes is up.
Got it. Okay. Well, thanks, Greg. And hi, everybody. Nice to see you again. It's been a minute. I wasn't totally sure what would be most useful to talk about. So I guess and Shelley did a really good job with the history of both Democracy Unlimited and Move to Amend. So in some ways, I just want to underscore a couple things, I think, as you all are at this moment right now where you're thinking about the future and where to go. When we launched Move to Amend, that one like that Democracy Unlimited's page had was indicative. Our Facebook wasn't used that much, but it was indicative of sort of what we thought was going to happen. We were planning to, reframe the Citizens United decision that we knew was going to come the way that it did, to be broader and not just talking about money, getting money out of politics, but making clear that the reason why corporations like Citizens United were able to contribute to the political campaigns is because of, the way the Constitution had been interpreted for decades and decades and decades before Citizens United. And so if you, the text was pretty small, but I did go look at the democracyunlimited.org new site and see that theory of social change is a little easier to read there. So I'd encourage folks to go there. But we really saw Move to Amend as a component of our shifting culture work. And it also did include, resisting the dominant system and creating alternatives. Ultimately, we hadn't actually written the amendment when we first launched because honestly, we didn't really expect to do an amendment campaign, full disclosure. We were doing a petition to the powers that be and the people, more importantly, to say, we don't stand for this. And that was all that we thought that we were going to be able to accomplish when we launched, is maybe we can get a few op-eds into key places and frame the story a little bit bigger and help give context for how this decision is even happening. And instead, we had, as Shelley said, hundreds of thousands of people sign the petition. Once we set up Move to Amend's Facebook page, it kind of just like, I had never been part of something that was viral before, but it really was viral. And then it became clear that we actually had to basically make good on this call that we had put out there, and we had to rise to the occasion and put together the campaign. So it was a response to basically the masses saying, yes, we do want to be part of this, and we do want to see this happen. And what is this amendment? Show us it. So, it took us basically, I remember during Occupy, we were actually writing the text of the amendment. It was like right as Occupy was like big in New York, was we were writing the language for the amendment. So I also just wanted to name that I remember in those early times trying to figure out like how to talk about capitalism being the problem without really naming capitalism, because you couldn't talk about capitalism back then. So I just think that's where, like we are in such a different context and world now that I think it's really right on time that you all are thinking about how to adjust, pivot, or broaden what is happening, because our goals at the time of launching Move to Amend were to help people understand that the system is fixed. It's not like off the rails a little bit just now. It is fixed. It has been fixed for, over 100 years, and arguably going back to the beginning of this country. Corruption is baked into our system. The United States is not a democracy, and that the Constitution or any idea of a constitution that's for the people has been hijacked. And I would say like check. The world understands maybe not everybody, but pretty much people get all of those things now. And so that's not just because of Move to Amend. That's because we were part of a broader context that was bringing all of this to show in front of the public. But now that there is an understanding or a common understanding of these premises, I think that it really does make sense for Move to Amend to rethink, in that context, what does it mean to call for a constitutional amendment to a document that was never democratic in the first place, for example. So with that, I will pass.
Thank you very much, Caitlyn. Let's pivot now to George. George is a longtime board member of Move to Amend, and has recently backed off, but will be soon. We are just starting an advisory committee, and she's agreed to be on that. She's also been a consultant with Move to Amend for a number of years, as well as one of the founders. George.
Thanks, Greg. Okay. My camera's not working well, so if I look blurry, do not adjust your sets. I was thinking about what I would share, and I'll share some of the moments where we as Move to Amend learned some lessons and some of the highlights. Certainly one of the highlights is that morning, afternoon, evening, that we sat together and made the decision that we would have a launch. A splash page, that was what they referred to as our website trial, that got deluged with people signing on. And you'll probably remember, Caitlyn, the room, I was the only person of color in the room. And I said, we can't start with one person of color. Actually, I didn't say person of color. I said Black woman. You remember that?
I do.
Yeah. Because I looked at you and Ricky Ott, and I'm like, what's up with this? Because, you were the only women. So that was in the fall. And by January of the next year, Jerome had joined us, Jerome Scott. So he was, in the beginning, the only other Black person that was in leadership. Soon after that, and I don't remember her last name, but Pam somebody? Brown, okay, who we had met through Occupy. And in our barnstorming, we went to lots of areas where Occupy was going on and talked to them. I was sitting on grass and talking to people about Move to Amend, going to campsites and singing songs with folks. Daniel was also very active in the Occupy, and he sort of modeled the best way to connect with some people in Occupy. So that was a lesson learned. Our movement education program which we made mandatory for our affiliates. And affiliates were groups of people in local towns that were interested in Move to Amend and wanted to push for a town ordinance, a town making a commitment to Move to Amend in their town or in their state. Greg, your state, Ohio, was fantastic in terms of work for Move to Amend, as was Florida. Those are two places I visited during barnstorming days with much success. We got affiliate groups started, and I don't know how many. They said in the opening slideshow, Shelley mentioned how many affiliate groups had gotten resolutions passed and all that, which was great work. But there was a time when we were telling affiliate groups that they had to do the movement education program. And an integral part of the movement education program is a solidarity plan where those individuals have to make commitments to build community and follow the leadership of groups that are led by people of color and deal with racism and deal with other forms of oppression from a place of privilege, as most of them had privilege. Most of our folks are, middle-class white people, went to college. So the people that resisted, and some of them left, and we as a body decided that, okay, we're not going to fight to keep you. If you need to go, fine, you got to go. It was a deal breaker if people were not willing to go through the movement education program. We're not willing to partner with people of color-led groups in their town, in their community, because you're not going to build a movement with just old white people. Not old, they weren't all old, but So when we needed to build a movement to pass a law, ultimately we're talking about passing law, and we need a movement to pass law. And that is good work that is continuing. I remember one meeting, I won't say where I was, y'all will know, but I won't have to tell you. One evening in a library where I'm walking people through what they had to do to sign on and continue being affiliate. And they refused. I didn't, tear them to shreds, which, y'all think is my instinct. But then they had to go. Y'all got to go. See ya. And that was hard in some ways, but it was also very satisfying to know that we could say goodbye, there's the door, before capitulating to someone's, I don't know, fragility. Yeah. So we did that well. And another great barnstorming time was with Laura Bonham. And I'm not sure where we were. I remember driving a lot in places that felt like rural places. But we did several presentations, and that was fun because we'd play the video that we have, which is 30 minutes long, that you can still get online. And we would take questions from people, talk to them about how they could organize locally, build alliances, and make change. So I have to be quiet now because my time is up.
Thank you, George. The two people George mentioned, among others, Jerome Scott, Pam Brown, are featured in Legalized Democracy. So if you haven't seen it, see it, they're there. Laura Bonham is next. Laura.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, can you see me? Oh.
Yeah.
There is like a 30-second delay between what I'm saying and it being broadcast.
Laura, you don't need to
So
wait.
I don't think this is going to work. I do want to say it was a joy working with Move to Amend.
You might have a delay, but we're hearing you.
Yeah, we're hearing you live. So if you want to turn
Okay,
your own,
I can keep going.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can keep going. Just don't listen to yourself.
I just wanted to make sure that you weren't picking up the speaker coming back at me. It's difficult for me because I can't turn down the volumes and things, I don't believe, without shutting down the microphone altogether. So I'll just keep on going and be brief. I jumped on Move to Amend shortly after that splash page previewed. I was working with Progressive Democrats of America, and I eventually completely began working with Move to Amend because I felt the mission was so important for all future generations. Every issue that a person could care about is smothered by corporate power and globally. So this work has been the joy of my life, and it has been great work. And looking from where we started to where we are now, significant steps forward have been made. And the country is in a very precarious place right now. I think the point of looking forward at this point is how do you keep your head down and keep moving forward without getting caught in the divisive nature of what goes on in communities and around political conversations. The work that we did early and learning how to build bridges to all these different communities, I think is a bedrock foundation of how we continue to build moving forward. So most of my work was in the background. I was in communications, helping to get our message out and have it be effective. And that is a very important part of organizing and building those bridges. And I hope people spend a little time learning how to be good communicators so that you can be better organizers. I know that the Move to Amend community has always helped me learn how to better phraseology, better ways to connect people, being able to move beyond my outlook and take in other people's outlook in order to communicate better with them. These are tools that I learned and honed and moved to Amend, and I'll always be thankful for that. I'm having a hard time concentrating because I can only hear myself coming back at me at this point. I want to say it's been a long time since we've been together in a phone call with this group of people, which is an honor and a joy. It's great to see you, Daniel, Greg, Caitlyn, and George, of course. And I wish everybody well. And I'm in the background, and I am really rooting for you guys. Go Move to Amend, go Democracy Unlimited. Thanks.
Thank you, Laura. Tremendous effort at this time lapse. And what a savant you were and probably still are in being a communicator. Thank you so much. We turn now last person in this first panel is Dr. Daniel Lee, who a board member of both Move to Amend and more recently Democracy Unlimited. Daniel.
Thank you, Greg. And I think I'm a good transition person, even if that was not our original intention. But I want to start off with like just some appreciations, like the work that like you, Greg, and a lot of folks that ProClad who were associated with POCLAD did really sort of provided the foundation for Move to Amend and the like sort of intellectual philosophical base to get people started. The work that you, George, did and in the context of like connecting people's day-to-day struggles to corporate struggles really sort of provided the DNA for like us to like, really connect the larger superstructure to people's lives. Like Laura, you mentioned a lot of the work you did. I feel like you wrote a significant amount of our blast as a volunteer and unpaid staff. Like, and that is like, that was for a very long time. That was like a decade of like unpaid blast. And then also, obviously, Caitlyn, like you kept the ship together and uh, challenged us at a number of different points to do something more. Like it's like, hey, we've done this. What if we do this? And like I feel like sometimes with like in movement infrastructure, people aren't appreciated. We all know this. We've all done work where we are not appreciated. So I just wanted to take a little moment to like say I appreciate you all. I'm not crying like I did at the retreat when George was leaving, but just so Caitlyn and Laura
Oh, I'm
know,
really sad. I missed that.
I cried. But like deeply appreciate you and
Me too.
like but like I wanted to start with that to preface that like we were not the only people, but like we were very integral and like and everyone on this panel and like changing the conversation. One of the reasons that like people in Occupy were so receptive to like corporations are not people, money is not free speech is we laid the groundwork and a lot of like the 1% versus the 99%, like we can't claim that, don't get me wrong, but like people were receptive because of like some ground that we laid down, and I don't want to undersell that and the work that all of you have done. Like I felt like my real 101 into organizing was being a co-director of Move to Amend Los Angeles with like Mary Beth Fielder um, here in LA, and we were one of the first large cities to pass a resolution calling for an amendment to the Constitution. And like I had never been to LA City Council, and that's the story that I want to relate. I had intended to talk about something else, but that's the short story that I want to relate really quickly. But like we were able to mobilize people who were in unions where their unions were still sort of like our union filed an amicus brief in favor of like Citizens United and environmental groups who did not think it was an issue, like women's rights groups, League of Women Voters was one of our early like big supporters in Los Angeles County. Like, but like, we in our first subcommittee meeting we had 150 people, and then when we were before the Los Angeles City Council we had like 2 overflow rooms, like we packed the city council and we had overflow rooms, and I was just getting out of jail from like Occupy. Like it was a transformative moment for me, and that is what Move to Amend has meant for me. Didn't really change my perspective. I've always been sort of anti-capitalist, even if I did not know what that meant. But it's just sort of realized in me, and I think the big part of our work, and this is what I will end with, the big part of our work is like letting people know that there are other people like us. And it's a lot of us. Like they would like to let you know that you're on your own, you're by yourself, you're an individualist, but there are a lot of people who agree with us without convincing even. They just don't know that you exist, and that is our work.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you to everyone in this first panel. It's been very enlightening in getting the sense of where we came as these intertwined organizations of Democracy Unlimited and Move to Amend. We want to now turn and look forward. And I think as we maybe shift here to faces who are going to join us for the second panel, I think being mindful of what I heard, I think it was Caitlyn who said, as we think about what we've done, and everyone from that first panel certainly shared and reflected on their own experiences, it's so important to understand that past as we think about adjusting, pivoting, or expanding on what we do going forward. And so that's what this panel is going to be doing now, is from their particular experiences based on where we are, you are, in your role as organizers, educators, and advocates in these two organizations going forward. What are you doing now? What do you see needs to happen in the days, weeks, and years ahead? So I'm going to start with Genevie Momia, who is, along with Jasmine Lewis, the two Democracy Unlimited Fellows, who are going to be with us at least through the end of the year, hopefully beyond. Then Kelsey Reedy, who is a Democracy Unlimited board member, will follow. She's been a long-time organizer and local affiliate leader of Move to Amend in Northern California. Alfonso Saldana and then Cole Bennett will follow. They are both co-directors and Move to Amend, having been with us for a couple of years in the case, well, more than a couple in case of Alfonso, and more recently Cole within the past year. So with that, again, as a reminder, 5 minutes each. Genevieve, I don't know if you will be able to time yourself, but otherwise, we will proceed. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. And I can keep track of my time. It's for everyone who doesn't know me, I'm Genevieve. I'm one of the new Democracy Unlimited Fellows, along with Jasmine, who's going to be sharing a bit after me. I'm from Hawaii. Went to school in DC, and I just graduated. Right now, I'm actually in Seattle on the Duwamish land, but usually I'm based in Hawaii. I think in looking forward, I just wanted to say thank you so much to our first panelists. It's been so great to hear just a little bit about what it was like before, everything that's going on with MTA now, and in being able to be a part of the future of MTA and mostly DU. I'm super hopeful and inspired by that momentum that everybody has brought through MTA, even just the small parts when it comes to affiliates or our role in Citizens United, but also what we're doing today. It's definitely a feeling and like a drive that you can't come by, and it's very unique to this organization. So I'm really grateful to be a part of it. And looking forward with DU, I think going back to the roots of Democracy Unlimited that started in Humboldt County and looking forward as Democracy Unlimited, it kind of gives us the lens that Caitlyn was talking about before, where we're not looking at the system as something that's broken, but something that was designed to function this way, a way that benefits corporations, are geared towards profit. I see it in my home now, where land, labor, power, it's all lying in the hands of, whatever it is, developers, real estate developers, private equity firms, all of that, defense companies, the list really does go on. And understanding this can just empower us to kind of deconstruct the system in the way that it was created deliberately. And I'm thinking back to Jasmine and I, our immersion to the organization when Shelley gave us that presentation originally, and we had a deep dive into Democracy Unlimited of Humboldt County and also MTA, and we read the Why We Need a Democracy Movement paper, which was co-authored by some of the people here. And there was just one part, I'm going to read the quote. They said, And then we must go still further, because we're not merely fighting against corporate rule, we're fighting for democracy. And that's something that Caitlyn really made clear, and our first panelist has really focused on, because I think in these past years with MTA, we've been really focused on that goal. And so revisiting, that fight for democracy is something that I'm super excited to bring forward. And that's why DU is coming back and we're soft launching it today. Because the We the People Amendment has helped push a movement against corporate rule. And now we can kind of zoom out and look at that bigger picture and, go back to the fact that we don't have a democracy today, and that mistaken belief for so many people that we do. Just in the interest of time, I'll kind of wrap it up. But I think that now, with what we have, everything is more interconnected than ever. And, the whole world, not just the United States, it's waking up to, corporations, not just corporations, but our own government. And we're keeping a watching eye on, a genocide that's happening in Palestine. We're keeping eyes on the Middle East, despite, all of the atrocities and murders that we're seeing directly on our phones. And people are waking up to the US war machine, how this is powered by our government, our money. And at the same time, we're able to connect those to struggles in Congo. We're looking at the exploitative cobalt industry and how that powers our technology today. And I'm seeing it at home too in Hawaii, when people are looking at environmental impacts that are coming from the US military, that are coming from these corporations and developers. And I think this is this is just a huge part of our understanding of democracy. It's not just voting. I know that we have a big election coming up, but it's not just that. It's what we've always talked about and what's the root of MTA is. It's that, people in our communities want to feel safe, to be fed, and to be taken care of when they're ill. And that's something that our country is not focused on. And building that local engagement and building education is something that we want to do with DU. And I think Jasmine can talk a little bit more about that. But yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, happy to be here gathering and sharing space with all of you. I am Jasmine Lewis. I'm a Democracy Unlimited Fellow, and I'm from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I also recently just graduated from the University of Alabama, where I pursued a bachelor's degree in social equity and culture, which was through their new college interdisciplinary studies program. So it was creating and curating my own field of study. And I'm very excited to be a part of Democracy Unlimited. And I remember when we initially joined, and we're having conversations about just the name and the phrase itself, Democracy Unlimited, sort of suggesting and making space for something that is boundless in terms of when we think about what democracy can be, something that is not only a network and a infrastructure within itself, but something that intertwines us all and connects us. And also within these initial conversations and thinking about what we want to work on for the duration of our fellowship, I felt like thinking about what democracy means, what it means to establish a true democracy, all points led to thinking about safety. So what I've been doing so far is creating this framework / white paper / manifesto about democracy as safety and how they're both intertwined. So I'm happy to give y'all like a little insight, a little teaser into that, and share some of the thoughts that have been surrounding building this project. So thinking about what needs to be in place to co-create a genuine functioning democracy. And democracy, when we think about it, is supposed to be a system of collective power and shared responsibility, where our decisions are what uphold the most power. And I've also been spending my time for the past few months thinking critically about technologies, and definitely see democracy itself as a form of technology, and how American democracy is like this system of different technologies that were put in place centuries ago, long before us, that have yet to be renewed or re-examined with our perspectives. And thinking about how they're being the founding legislators, their definitions of freedoms, of balances of power, of what's a healthy infrastructure for society, how all of those need to be reassessed, especially putting in the perspectives of people who are historically marginalized and people who are definitely undeserved and underrepresented. And think about this, it also leads me to the question, what does it mean to include our perspectives, especially those of us who are underrepresented, into the veins of this design? And one of them is definitely safety. And safety is not a one-way street. Safety is multidimensional. It relies on us having access to community and being able to support each other. And it requires a high level of attention and care, that's also at a structural level, in order to preserve the well-being of us in body, in mind, and in being. And thinking about safety, there's so many different prongs to it. I mean, we can talk about healthcare being both physical and emotional, housing and access to shelter, access to true education, clean food and water, the use and practices of technologies. And in this, I feel like it's so important for us to take seriously and think critically about what it means to sustain a democracy and to leverage communal power in a way that truly reflects our safety. What does it mean to detach from the erosive cultures of, as Genevieve just mentioned, multiple occurring genocides, surveillance systems, structural violence, threats against our humanity and our access to knowledge? And instead, how can we embrace possibility and our responsibilities and right towards democracy as an opportunity to sort of embody a care-filled and safety-based ecology?
Thank you, Jasmine. Next is Kelsey Reedy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kelsey. I am in Humboldt County, the birthplace of Move to Amend, and I know I'm supposed to be talking about the vision of the future, and I will, but I do want to kind of just touch on the past because I'm very excited about the vision because of kind of the difference between the past, a little bit of what Caitlyn was talking about and like the change of context that we're in. I started as a Move to Amend intern when I was an undergrad in Humboldt, and I was very reluctant because the political system, I already knew that it was not something that worked for us. And so I was very already tuned out of that. And I wasn't really paying attention to that. I was trying to build alternatives outside. And then when my best friend who worked for Move to Amend, Jessica Munger, she, told me, she got me to understand how it is that corporate rule was impacting all of the work in the community that we were already doing. All of the solidarity movement that was happening, all of that is impacted by corporate rule, and the lack of democracy that we have. And so I got involved in Move to Amend and was an intern for a couple of years. And then I became the Humboldt affiliate coordinator of our local branch here. And so I learned so much from Move to Amend as a national organization and then running a local affiliate. I got to kind of compare and contrast like those two different organizing styles. So I just want to share a lot of appreciation for folks in Move to Amend. I've learned a ridiculous amount and been introduced to a lot of amazing people through this work. So just want to give you guys some props for that. And then kind of the difference is that like when I first started with Move to Amend, we had our first the national leadership kind of summit thing that we did in DC. And we were talking about how to talk about ending capitalism without scaring everyone. Because then, saying something like that was like, woo, like that was a big threat. And so, it's really amazing that now that is common terms. That's common language, especially by young people, that they know that capitalism, we're not going to be able to have democracy within capitalism, and we're not going to be able to, fight oppressions and save the environment. None of that is possible within capitalism. And so being able to actually address that head on is a huge difference in kind of the narrative and the context that we're in now. So I'm really excited to be on the DU board now and be working to kind of relaunch what it is we're working on. We talk a lot about the interconnectedness between all of the work that we do in the community, all the solidarity work, and then fighting the oppressions and the wars that Jasmine and Genevie were talking about. I'm really, really excited that we have a couple new fellows that are younger and have an amazing spirit and drive and a different vision than all of us older folks have. And so I'm really, really excited to be working with y'all. I'm also excited to now have this DU restarted so that we can tap into, I would say, mainly the young people in the way that they have already tuned out of political work, because they understand since the beginning, they know that the system was fixed and isn't something that they can really work with. And so having this other body, DU, that is focusing on creating our own democracy and also tapping into alternatives to the system, because once we create an actual democracy, we're going to have like folks were saying, that's the first step, is ending corporate rule. And then building the democracy, we're also going to have to start all these new processes for us. And so being able to tap into a bunch of mutual aid that's already happening in communities and alternatives that are starting up outside of the system, that is huge. So I'm really excited about all of that, and really excited about our branding. It's going really well. So looking forward to our launch with DU, y'all. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kelsey. And the couple of presentations you've heard from the DU perspective, it is not something that is existing in isolation, but meant to be integral, in part, to the work that Move to Amend is going to be doing going forward, not necessarily to lead it, but to participate in it, to learn from it, and to contribute to it to some extent. So that's why these two organizations and two strategies and two visions are coming together the way they are. And so with that, a little transition to now Alfonso and Cole to talk about Move to Amend, where it is now and where you see it going forward. Alfonso.
Thank you, Greg. Hello, everyone. My name is Alfonso Saldaña, and I'm honored to be speaking to all of you today here. I am coming to you live from Brownsville, Texas, which is formerly the land of the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe. I've been with Move to Amend for a little over 6 years now, and I started off as an intern. I then became the communications coordinator, and I now serve as one of the national co-directors. But even throughout all those different roles, I have always been a believer of people power. And why shouldn't I be a believer when I have seen firsthand how every year this movement has achieved their benchmarks with a modest budget, if I may say so. More importantly, this movement has delivered so many results in the 15 years, like gaining more congressional co-sponsors every session, by having over 700 organizational endorsements. Most recently, Veterans for Peace, who has included the We the People Amendment into their strategic planning, and by having hundreds of local and state resolutions in support of the We the People Amendment, and by the ever-growing number of volunteers that want to sign up and be a part of this movement. As a long-time and as passionate member of the Move to Amend Coalition, I have seen many great examples of the collective people power. And I would like to share some of those incredible memories and the transformative journey, which most of the panelists have echoed. One of my fondest memories was attending the Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C. in the summer of 2018. And it was the first time that I was loving my representative in Congress. I cannot express how powerful that experience was for me. Walking down the halls of Congress, I felt the weight of history and the urgency of our mission. Together, we demanded that our representatives listen to we the people, and not just to the interests of their big donors. It was a beautiful moment of unity as people from all over the country came together for the same cause. It reminded me that we are stronger, and as we stand together, as Daniel mentioned earlier. There's a lot of people like us that are want this change. Uh, Unfortunately, with COVID, those leadership summits came to a pause, but we reignited our spirits in September 2023 when we marched alongside 20,000 people, probably more, out on the streets in New York City in what was called the End Fossil Fuel March. It was an incredible honor to carry and display the huge replica of the U.S. Constitution that was lent to us from a partnering organization called Adbusters. Uh, it was a preamble of the We the People. The Constitution had the preamble We the People in bold letters, and we were there to demand an end to corporate rule and the greed that has been fueling the climate crisis that we are seeing right now. We made it clear that big oil companies knew for way too long that their products were the culprit of the climate catastrophe, and that they must be held accountable for their actions. As we look ahead, our focus is still to continue to build that power and to leverage it as we push against the big corporate influence in our political system. This movement grows stronger every day in the face of rising fascism, and our collective efforts have already begun to transform the impossible into the inevitable. We will continue this vital work moving forward to create a democracy that allows people, communities, and the natural world to flourish. You can help by getting involved, and I highly encourage you to sign up for our mailing list so that you can partake in ongoing campaigns like the We the People Wednesdays, where every Wednesday we ask you to call your representative using the one-click politics software, which allows you to easily connect to your representative by just entering a few questions, answer a few questions like your name, zip code, and phone number. And if you want to sign up for the newsletter, you can go to movetoamend.org/volunteer. We also have what we call the Pledge to Amend campaign, and you can learn more about that by visiting movetoamend.org/pledge 2024. You can find if your candidate has taken the pledge to support amending the U.S. Constitution. But if they haven't, we highly encourage you to bird dog them until they do. Our website has a lot of resources to assist you in that endeavor, including a recording from one of our Minnesota affiliates who has shared a lot of their effective tips to have this be a successful campaign. All of these, the We the People Wednesdays and the Place to Remain campaign, are present and ongoing campaigns that you can always join and be a part of. Another thing that is worth mentioning is that on November 18, we're going to be having an onboarding call for anyone that is interested in becoming a new advocate or volunteer. And you can learn more about that by the link that I'm going to be sharing right now on screen. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Alfonso, for that set of reflections. Turn now to the last person in this panel, Cole Bennett, who himself was a Move to Amend fellow last year, I think it was, or a year and a half ago, a recent graduate of Georgia State, I think, law school, and is the Move to Amend political director. Cole.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cole Bennett. As Greg said, I am the political justice director and a national co-director here at Move to Amend. As Greg said, I was a fellow, and after graduating law school, I've come on full time, and I plan to and hope to be a part of Move to Amend moving forward for as long as they'll let me keep doing it. But I'm here to tell you that I think there's a lot of pessimism and hopelessness, for lack of a better word, in the current political climate. There's a lot there's a lot to kind of look at as bad. But I'm here to tell you that there's really a lot to be optimistic about moving forward. As I don't know if anybody said it yet, but the We the People Amendment, House Joint Resolution 54, right now has 88 co-sponsors. That is just a little bit under what we are hoping to end with at the end of the year, which is 100. As you all know, or as you may or may not know, 100 members of Congress is not enough to actually amend the Constitution. So really what we need and what we are all here to do is to build a real legitimate populist democracy movement. And I think a lot of times this work can feel a little bit like waiting on a revolution. I'm here to tell you that the revolution is coming. And when you look at young people today, and I just graduated from, as Greg said, from Georgia State Law School. A lot of people in my generation, in Gen Z, that have grown up in a world where a lot of our institutions are failing us. A lot of our politicians lie through their teeth every chance they get. A lot of people that I would consider to be in Gen Z are kind of wisening up to it. And, you can see that whether it's the student protests on campus, the student encampments on campuses across the country, just a general malaise around corporations and the role that they play in our society, as well as increased notoriety and infamy of the, as we all know, the disastrous Citizens United decision that kind of kicked off this whole thing in the first place. So I think there's a lot of hope as a lot of us in Gen Z start to mature and start to find themselves in positions of power. The first Gen Z member of Congress, Maxwell Frost of Florida's 10th district, was one of our first co-sponsors here in this legislative session. So between all that, again, like I said, it can feel like we are waiting on a revolution to come. And part of that is both cultivating that and building relationships and coalitions and working together in this common struggle, but also preparing for when it comes, because it is coming. The kids are all right. The kids get it. They get corporate personhood. They get that it's a logical fallacy that a corporation is not a person. I think our biggest task moving forward is really education and really just getting the word out to as many people as possible, because this is something when I was first kind of diving into campaign financing and the unfortunate influence that money and corporations have over our legislature. I became hooked, and as you can see, I'm here now. I've dedicated my career to solving this issue, and I'm overjoyed to be able to work full time with everyone at Move to Amend. I often joke that I love being the least intelligent person in a room. I think that's the room you need to be in to grow and to be I like being in my opinion, the least intelligent person in a room of people that I'm very honored and inspired to work with every day. And so if there's one message to take away, it's that this movement is coming. The kids are maturing. The kids are getting into places where it's coming, and we're going to be ready for it here at Move to Amend.
Thank you, Cole. Appreciate that very much, and your involvement and the involvement of all of you. Well, we do want to throw out a question or a couple to all the panelists. But before that, we wanted to recognize someone particularly special who wasn't able to make it right at the beginning, but is here now with us. And that is Jonathan Freeman. It was Jonathan who offered his humble abode back in, I guess it would be this time, 15 years ago, mid to late October in 2009, offered his place of residence to gather these half dozen, no, more like a dozen, right? 12 to 15 people to come together. And Jonathan, just wanted to give you an opportunity to sort of share your reflections on that moment, what it meant to you, and where you see things are now. Welcome. And please unmute yourself.
I just did. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much. So I remember that moment very well. It was quite exciting to see people come together after the passing, or actually, was it just before Citizens United?
Yes.
I think it was just before, and be motivated to spring into action once that decision would come to pass, which unfortunately did. And people were serious. They were motivated and ready to work. And that move to amend has lasted now 15 years. It's really good to see. So where things are going is, I wish I had some of the enthusiasm that you did, Cole, or you do actually. I've studied this issue for 25 years and hosted other groups where we got together to figure out how we could adjust the legal structure of corporations, which are very, very complex and complicated, and have been set up by both statute and by litigation over the last 200 years, particularly the last 200 years. 200 years ago was when corporate personhood was really brought into being by Dartmouth v. Woodward. And from that point, with the advent of the train industry, they started moving the corporate entity, which at that point was artificial, into something that was natural. It's a very difficult issue, and I think that the things that have been talked about is the constant education, even simplifying it to the point where folk can understand easily how much of their lives are taken up by corporations, how much corporations control everything from our air we breathe and the food we eat and the water we drink and the clothes we wear and the cars we drive and so on. That it's almost like you have to pull the cellophane off of yourself in order to really get what it is that at a basic level, what it is that we're really trying to do here. And Greg, I learned at your knee along with POCLAD, all the folks from POCLAD. And I think you might remember I met with you guys up at OAEC years ago. And I'm still fired up about corporations. There's one reason why I did my carpool lane gig. And I certainly will keep fighting until my last breath.
Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. Hopefully that last breath is a long time from now. And do appreciate
Thank you.
Do remember the time you met with us up at OAC. Thank you so much for providing that arena, that safe space and that comfortable space for those individuals who came together back in 2009. That really was the spark for all of this now.
Exactly.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, we do have a a question, sort of a couple of questions we wanted to throw out to everyone who participated in the two panels. We are trying to be somewhat mindful of time. So basically, what we want to find out from any of you who no one, don't be compelled that every person has to speak, but if you feel like you need to, then certainly we welcome any insight, basically, in going forth. Now, having done what Move to Amend has done, in particular, over the past 15 years, what elements of our strategy should be tweaked, changed, or discarded wholesale? What new strategy or tactic should we consider? The world has changed certainly considerably since we began. How should we and our organization adapt in this changing yet potentially transformative moment? Some of you have spoken on this to some extent already, but anything else that you would like to say based on maybe what somebody else said that you would like to elaborate on, feel free to do so, and maybe try to do that, each of you, if you choose to do so, no longer than, dare I say, a minute.
Okay, I'll jump in really quickly. Like, what I would say is, I know this has been a goal for Move to Amend and Democracy Unlimited all along, but I do feel like this is the point where we want to be a little bit more instigative in terms of being in conversation with other people. Because we know other people without our influence have this analysis. And I think a lot of other people have some idea of what they want to do with that analysis. And I feel like being in conversation with people right now is incredibly important. And I feel like to some degree more important than our own like individual organizational strategy.
I'll jump in too and just say what I had written beforehand for this was, I think the goal should still be to, the goal should be systemic social change via grassroots-led people's movements. And it sounds like that's still the goal. So I'm glad to see that and not surprised. And I guess I would just name that, honestly, I don't think there's anyone in Congress using their position to further that agenda. And that is real. So, and I'm counting all the Move to Amend, We the People Amendment co-sponsors in that. And I would hope that the work could still be continued, but understanding, what to do about the fact that in terms of the deeper agenda, we don't have any allies in Congress. There might be some people who maybe wish that that could be what was happening, but they're not using their power to make it happen. So I think that's a really important thing to grapple with and be real about and not sidestep around or, and then the other thing I just wanted to say, sorry, Greg, this probably won't be a minute, but I'll still keep it brief. Sure. When I was thinking about all this, I was thinking about how Arundhati Roy, when she first wrote about the pandemic, she said to use the pandemic as a portal. And just to name, or just to quote what she said, just the very end of this essay that she had written in 2020. Whatever it is, coronavirus has made the mighty kneel and brought the world to a halt like nothing else could. Our minds are still racing back and forth, longing for a return to normality, trying to stitch our future to our past and refusing to acknowledge the rupture. But the rupture exists. And in the midst of this terrible despair, it offers us a chance to rethink the doomsday machine we have built for ourselves. Nothing could be worse than to return to normality. Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. And obviously, we're past we're past that moment in some ways, but I still think that actually the pandemic should be a portal. Move to Amend and Democracy Unlimited should both be organizations that resist that urge to go back to normalcy, because what we did see is that the whole world could be brought to its knees. And obviously we have, climate change happening for all of us in different ways. So it makes it a little bit harder to connect those dots for people, but not really. And that's the context that we're in. And we're not in the context that we were in 2009 anymore. It's a different world. And we could talk a lot more about that, but I think that Move to Amend has built so much and done so much work and helped so many people understand the systemic problem. It's important to not get caught up in continuing a tactic when the tactic is not what the time is called for.
Well said. Anyone else want to weigh in on this?
I would be curious to hear from some of the younger folks, and I feel like Cole was gonna chime in at just as I was saying that, because I feel like they know.
Well, it's that enthusiasm that Jonathan was talking about, youthful exuberance, if you will. But I just wanted to real quickly go off of something that Caitlyn said about us not really having anybody that's really pushing the agenda that we really want in Congress. I do think that a strategy for us moving forward, we talked about this at the strategic retreat, is let's start putting people in those positions. Whether it's some of us or members of our community that we work to empower. That's the only way we're really going to get things done. And Washington can be, kind of haves and have-nots, who's in the club and who's not. But the reality is it's a cliche of we're not outnumbered, we're out organized. And capitalizing on the power that the people have is our fundamental struggle, our fundamental goal. And just again hammering home the youth thing I was talking about earlier is that we want, moving forward, I'm excited for the future of Move to Amend, because I do think we have a lot of young voices right now that can synthesize our message into a very resonant, into a resonant package for young people, and really start empowering younger folks that, again, like me, have really seen how the system has failed and is set up to fail. So yeah, putting more people in positions of power would be great.
Anyone else?
I'll jump in real quick. I was definitely going to say that exact thing, that there's a lot of young leaders who are ready to take office, who are trying to do that. And I think that there's not really a lot of support or education around how to do that and what that looks like. I think in Humboldt, we have what's called a North Coast People's Alliance, which is literally just supporting, like, quote unquote progressive folks to take office. And so, what does campaigning look like? What does phone banking look like? What does it, take to create your whatever stance on things. So I think something like that would be huge. And then on the opposite side of that, I also think that we need more direct action. We need to cause more of a mess for folks who are just doing the routine of things and are not willing to be inconvenienced. And so I feel like we need to be a bigger inconvenience to the system. Pass.
And can I just name that the people who potentially have the most capacity to do direct action are like retired folks who don't need to worry about maybe getting fired if you are in jail. And, there might be health issues there, but what better legacy to help younger people who are going to have to be dealing with this world than to, put your body into it as an older person.
Just to say on that front, Bill McKibben, who has helped start 360.org, has since led the way with this group called Third Act, made up of individuals who are, I think it's 60 years or older, around climate change, doing direct action. He was one of the original founders of Move to Amend and has since been on a call that we had in trying to solicit Bernie Sanders to introduce the We the People Amendment in the Senate, which he's resisted up to this point. But McKibben was involved in that effort in trying to solicit. So he's out there, totally overworked and committed, but is supportive, making those connections. All right, anyone else? Okay, if not, we just have a few announcements to make. And then Katie would like to make a pitch before we go to some closing remarks and then some discussion and questions and comments from any of you. So if you out there...
Greg?
Yes.
Just wanted to see if you had any thoughts to share at all. You shared a little bit, now about Bill McKibben, but you have a wealth of organizing experience, and generationally, an older person. Just wanted to see if there was anything else that you wanted to share, and thank you for facilitating.
Sure, appreciate that. I just have a few things to say kind of in closing remarks in a couple minutes. That is very short, but thanks for that. But I think we do want to get to some of these other things real quickly and make sure that there's time for people who are on this call who wish to sort of weigh in. So in terms of announcements, most things have already been mentioned in terms of what Move to Amend has in store concerning this upcoming gathering in November of people who want to become a quote unquote Move to Amend advocate, an individual person, not necessarily attached to a group that we call affiliates, who want to do things in their own community, whether it's completely by themselves or if they're already embedded in an organization. There's that. It's already been mentioned that Democracy Unlimited is wanting to pull off after the election something called a People's Movement Assembly that was done a number of years ago, around, I think it was 2020 or so. That is an opportunity for people to come together to envision a real true democracy, what that means, and then working back from there. We've also spoken about, through Move to Amend, following the election to the inauguration, maybe having a physical presence there to be working in conjunction and in solidarity with other organizations and other individuals who will be protesting whoever is elected, trying to raise up issues that we hope, in an agenda that we hope whoever is elected will work on, and if not, to make sure that we are in their face and certainly look at that opportunity and a time as maybe a time early in the congressional session to introduce the We the People Amendment in the next congressional session. So rather than waiting until April or May for 48, 54, whatever large number comes up, to try to introduce something early on. Other things have been mentioned as well for people to become involved in. Watch for that in follow-up emails. So at this point, I want to turn it over to Katie, who has a couple of announcements concerning how you can help us out before we sort of turn this over to all of you and go from there. Katie, and maybe if you can, in the interest of time, see if you can try to abbreviate your comments.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short. First, I do want to tell you how excited I am to be in this space with you all. I'm very familiar with the content that people I haven't met yet have put out over the years. If you have a YouTube video, I've definitely seen it, and I want to thank you personally for putting in the hard work in establishing Democracy Unlimited and building Move to Amend into the incredible organization it is today. My name is Katie, and I became a fundraising director a little over a year ago, and I was able to retire. I'm one of those old people, Caitlyn, that retire early to focus on activism. My brief history, I'll make it quick. I lost my sister last year to a very long battle with opioids. I lived through the BP oil spill that devastated our community. And my dad died of a stroke after the 2008 Great Recession. So my grievances are all over the place. I was so thankful to find Move to Amend during Occupy, a organization who are not just focused on putting out fires, but who are actively working to stop the arsonist. Let me try to abbreviate. I did my research. I knew I was applying to a great organization, and I knew that they were advocating for systemic change, the systemic change we need to create a true democracy. But what I did not fully comprehend was how incredible the people I would be working with are. I'm so honored to be part of this team. The board members, directors, affiliates, volunteers, and now our new fellows, who were just amazing tonight, show up ready to get things done. They're passionate, intelligent, and so hardworking. And my job is to make sure that we have the resources needed to support them so they can continue the important work that they're doing. So it's with a full heart that I would asking you to go to movetoamend.org/donate and make a donation to ensure that our movement keeps growing and we don't miss any opportunities to educate and inspire people in 2025. Even better, I invite you to become a monthly sustaining donor. This really does help in planning a robust calendar of events in advance and get the most bang for our buck. So when we participate in events nationwide and connect with like-minded organizations in person, we see an immediate increase in engagements. We have accomplished so much, but there's still so much work to be done. Building a people's movement strong enough to amend the Constitution and create democracy for we the people is no small task, but it is possible with your support. So again, please go to movetoamend.org/donate and make a contribution. And if you have any questions, feel free to message me personally, Katie@movetoamend.org. I really look forward to hearing from you guys. And for those of you who are tuning in, who are already doing this, donating to us, thank you so much. Your investment is well spent. And I'm sorry if I rushed too much, but thank you guys. Well, this is awkward silence.
Oh, I'm sorry. So thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
Yep. Well, if nothing else, are there any, from what you can see, Alfonso, any comments or questions that anyone has shared?
I would just say, like, I think it would be
Oops, Daniel, we may have missed you.
Daniel, you cut out a little bit, but I want to underline real quick what Katie was saying and how important fundraising is for us. We're a team of, we have 5 directors, but the reality is that, when you're choosing what you want to give, what you want to donate your money to, where you think it's going to be the most effective, we do a lot with a little. And I really want to underline that point, that, a donation to us, it really does go a long way. So just wanted to supplement that a little bit.
Great.
Thank you, Cole. I did skip on that a little bit, but I did want to say that our budget last year was $300,000, and we did so much with that little bit of money. It always amazes me how much we get accomplished with such little money. So we really want to increase that budget this year. And thank you guys.
Yep, absolutely. I just wanted to share that we did get a person, Ricky Ott, who is one of the original also founders of Move to Amend, who she may have tuned into this call. If she is, welcome. Hello, Ricky, and thank you so much for Ricky said that she was going to commit to a $500 donation that she will match on this call. If anyone is willing to make a donation, she will match it up to $500. So if you can do that, please communicate that, and we will try to collect that. So you can just pledge. You don't have to go to our website right this moment, but if you just want to make a pledge, that would be terrific. And there is a question Genevie put in the chat. Are there suggestions regarding discussing these issues with people on the right who argue that we are not a democracy, but a republic, as if democracy is itself suspect? Anyone want to address that?
Well, in my experience working with people on the right, what is helpful is to talk about specifics rather than worry about these words, these two words. And, you know, talking about local control of resources and taking care of our communities is something that, you know, has resonated in the past in my experience talking to Republicans and working with Republicans in Humboldt County, for example. But I also would say that you could also just not worry about it that much, because there are a lot more people, I think, who believe in democracy. And as long as you define that democracy means the people rule, and if there's somebody who's really obsessed with arguing about that, then they're probably not somebody that you really need to convince, and go forward and try and find the folks who are more receptive. Is just, this has been a question that has been a question for Move to Amend since day one. And that's why I thought I'd jump in and answer it. And I mean, like, my answer is no different then than it is now, which is if people don't support what we're trying to do, then those are not the people to start organizing with. Pass.
Yep. The only other thing I'll say is, you know, if you want to start to get into that kind of minutia, Republican, all, well, yes, we elect people who represent us, but there is, at a local level and in many state levels, efforts at doing an end run around representatives and doing direct democracy through ballot initiatives. That is direct democracy. That's not a republic. That's democracy. And so, you know, it's one retort. Another question I consider Move to Amend, or comment from Jenny, who is also co-director of Move to Amend. I consider Move to Amend's impact with changing culture at the movement level, but also mainstream realm. Examples such as art, music, even landing a solid endorsement in the Barbie movie. How do you all suggest we continue in culture change arena?
I can try to answer that one. So we have been partnering with artists like Peter Coyote. There is a video, it's like 4 minutes, and it's really good for anyone that wants to learn more about why we need the We the People Amendment. It's on our YouTube channel. So we try to do that kind of connection with artists. Sometimes it's hard, especially like at the Goodwig our level, but we tried. A way that people can help us is like to viralize or help us make viral our hashtags, our content, share it with as many family members and friends as you can. That definitely helps us get more exposure in social media and in everyone's affect culture. We have also tried to do more in-person events, and where people are there taking pictures, and we get exposure that way. That is also a great way to do that. You can also, if you like, we have been mentioning about how corporate rule affects pretty much every single aspect of our lives. So if you have like a very specific, very personal story, of how you're being affected by corporations abusing and using their unlimited funding, maybe you can share it on social media and tag us, and we can help. We can create more exposure that way as well. But those are just some ideas that come to mind right now. But open for anyone else to share.
Yeah, Daniel, for some reason we can't hear you at the moment. So you froze earlier.
Oh yeah, no worries, no worries. I feel like people have said what I was going to say. I feel like a lot of people who talk about a republic are libertarians, and they are very into semantics. And I feel like, one of the tasks of our movement is to recognize semantics and people who don't want to do shit, and want to wrap you up in that shit instead of actually working towards actual solutions, and to not put our energy into those people. But Caitlyn said it best.
Yep. Sometimes the language can turn on or turn off people. So we do have to be mindful sometimes of words. For some people, democracy connects. For others, sovereignty does. What for me is sort of something that transcends is the right to decide. So whether it's right, left, or in between, I think most people do feel like they should have the right to decide.
I have a quick answer for the culture question.
Go ahead.
I briefly touched on this in my rambling that I gave earlier, but I really do think just when you look at it in a vacuum, corporate personhood is the most ridiculous thing to be really screwing up our democracy, our republic, democracy in air quotes, but it's completely illogical, and really just getting the issue out there, I think is, whether it's through social media or trying to insert ourselves in popular culture in other ways, like the Barbie movie, people knowing about Citizens United, not just Citizens United, but corporate personhood in general. I mean, I think people would be out in the streets if they knew how much we are kind of being taken for a ride by corporations and their C-suites. So, I really do just think getting corporate personhood out there, getting Citizens United out there, getting corporate constitutional rights out there, any way that you can, we do our part, but, again, we're 5 people, we have a board, whatever. We really need everyone to kind of push this issue and ask your politicians about it, ask your community about it. And I think even just doing that, we'll be better along than maybe we are at present.
Just going off of that, I wanted to just add a little something, but in changing culture and getting the word out there, it's not just the politicians, but I think something going forward we really want to work on, and we're already working on, is pushing that education through social media, because right now, mainstream media, it's very hard to come by truth in mainstream media, and it's the same way in alternative media sources as well. And so, going through, unfortunately, things like TikTok and Instagram and Meta, X, whatever, is a way to actually spread real truth. And that's us sharing our struggle and the knowledge that we have that maybe the rest of our generation might not have. And yeah, changing culture, changing the social norm comes with our new generations. And so accessing them through social media is something that we really want to tap into in the future, especially with DU and Move to Amend alike. So yeah.
I see that George is needing to go here. Any last words, George? Well, maybe guess not. Thank you so much. I'll just add.
No, I've got a couple of words.
Oh,
3
sure.
from our in the spirit of Jerome. Make it happen. I'll see you. Make it happen.
See ya. Well, in that spirit, what a little offering I wanted to share, and sort of picking up from Genevie is that, I think, yeah, media and alternative media are very important, but so is the personal contacts. Not the vision I have going forward in seeing Move to Amend and Democracy Unlimited really has three components to it. One is a vision and a plan that is first radical. And by radical meaning getting to the root of things, that's the dictionary definition that certainly goes far beyond the amendment itself. I mean, don't look now, but there's calls that's becoming more mainstream to not just amend, but to suspend, to basically rewrite. I mean, this is becoming more mainstream. We're reaching out, have increasingly begun reaching out to constitutional law professors and law professors in general, but even in the quote unquote mainstream media, there's some serious questions about the legitimacy of the Constitution, that maybe it just can't be. I mean, certainly some say it needs some radical amending, but some say it needs some transformation. So that is sort of maybe an opportunity, maybe a portal to move. But it's got to go even beyond that. When I worked for the American Friends Service Committees, I did for 30 some years, one of the words that was used oftentimes to do the work that the service committee did that was both international and local and everything in between was glocal. That we need to both be local and global at the very same time, because all of these issues and problems that we're experiencing, it's damn artificial to try to say we can only deal with these things locally or at the county level or state or national. There's some things that, yes, we need to do, but nevertheless, these things are so large that nothing short of an ability to think of this and work in solidarity with others around the globe is necessary. That can be, of course, incredibly daunting. So you just pick and choose what you can do, but keep in mind that that is extremely important. So that's one thing, to be radical. The second is to be practical, which almost seems counterintuitive in a sense of being committed to addressing the immediate needs through approaches that I know Democracy Unlimited has spoken about and is committed to, and that is through things like mutual aid, and that certainly AFSC tried to do, and I think is very important to sort of connect working at the transformative level with working on the human scale level, at meeting people's immediate needs. And as one does that, it provides an opening, an opportunity to recruit people, to educate people, to mobilize people, to develop leadership, and to politicize people. So it's an opportunity by doing that immediate help. Now, what can we do? We can't, clothe people. We can't provide food at a national level, Move to Amend. We can certainly at a local level encourage individuals and affiliates to do something like that. But something we're thinking about national that could meet that sort of immediate need is a psychological need. Given the kinds of crises, and I mean that in a plural sense, that we're dealing with, not just social and economic and political and constitutional and ecological, but psychological. How are we dealing with it? And we're seeing so many people opting out, so many people going to, relying on drugs or sport. I mean, all the distractions that are out there as a sort of way to try to come to terms. And some of these ways can be very dangerous to themselves and others. So we're developing a movement education program module that looks at sort of inner work and trying to help people connect inner work with outer work. That is something that certainly could be helpful internally among Move to Amend supporters, but beyond, to offer to others. Others have done this sort of thing. We're going to try to give our twist to it. And thirdly, besides being radical and practical, is personal. The ability, it sort of connects to these others. You hear, and I think it's so important, and I certainly have not done this for much of my career, but have done it more recently, is to tell my own story of how I came to where I am now and how that happened and how I felt and the inadequacies of going from there to here and the inadequacies that I still feel, that we all feel. And it's okay to talk about that and to share that. And I think that is one way, one pathway, a little bit in exposing oneself to connect to people across the spectrum, including our friends on the political right. And as we do that and talk about that, we're also trying to care authentically for other people, certainly those that we work with as co-workers, co-directors, co-fellows, co-volunteers, co-board members, whatever role we have with these two organizations. And we try to be extremely caregiving to one another in beginning meetings with checking in. That's something we can all do with ourselves individually, but with those in our own households, with those we work with in our own organizations. So being radical, practical, and personal together and not keeping them segmented, but integrated is to me something quite worthwhile thinking about. Other comments, questions, queries? Well, if not, then I just want to thank our distinguished panel, both of them, those that you see now, those who were with us before, those who had to go earlier, those who dealt with technical issues, meteorological issues, and other concerns that either prevented them from being fully present or potentially threatened and maybe took some of their takeaways. So thanks to all of those, but equally, if not more so, thanks to all of you who tuned in, because as much as we in leadership of these organizations need one another, we need you. And we need you to be local leaders, to do the work that's so necessary as we think about glocaling and working at a local level with those nationally at Move to Amend and Democracy Unlimited. We absolutely and positively need one another. There's no way we will ever develop the authentic, inclusive, democratic, or whatever kind of other movement you want to use that's a synonym to democracy, that kind of authentic movement that is building power that makes people say no when we want them, who say no when we want them to say yes. That'll never, ever happen unless we have that kind of powerful movement. And so we need you. You need us. Let's continue to work together. Thank you for all your support in the past 15 years. Hopefully it won't take another 15, but whether it does, whether it's with the Move to Amend, Democracy Unlimited, or some other configuration that's working for real democracy, let's go together in peace, with power, and in solidarity. Thanks to everybody.